Okay, so you want to run a research station in Antarctica. Fly in a few scientists, drop them on the ice, let them study penguins and glaciers, and wait for the world to thank you for your contribution to human knowledge. But here's the strange part. Antarctica has no government, no taxes, no landlords, and no economy in the traditional sense at all, and yet nations spend hundreds of millions of dollars a year just to keep a base running there. And it's not charity. There's a very real, very calculated financial machine underneath every one of those research stations. And in the last few years, that machine has started cracking in a way nobody saw coming. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly how research stations in Antarctica actually get funded, where the real money flows once it lands on the ice, why the math only works because of a very fragile arrangement, and why some of the most prestigious science bases on Earth are now quietly taking money from cruise ships full of tourists just to keep the lights on. Here's the thing you need to understand first. A research station in Antarctica isn't really a business in the normal sense, because there's no product being sold and no customer paying for it directly. It's closer to a government-funded outpost, like a military base or an embassy, except instead of defending a border, it's defending a country's scientific and geopolitical presence on a continent that technically belongs to no one. And that distinction matters enormously, because it changes everything about how the money moves. Let's talk about the actual scale first, because most people have no idea how expensive this is. The National Science Foundation, which funds the bulk of American Antarctic research, runs on a budget of roughly $9 billion a year across all of its programs, and a meaningful slice of that goes toward the U.S. Antarctic program specifically. McMurdo Station, the largest American base on the continent and effectively the capital city of U.S. Antarctica, has an ongoing modernization project alone that's been budgeted at over $400 million. And even the annual operations budget just to keep the existing stations running sits north of $200 million a year. That's before you build anything new. That's just heating the buildings, flying in fuel, and feeding the people who live there. So where does all that money actually come from? And more importantly, where does it go once it lands on the ice? Think of it like a funnel, sitting inside a country's national science budget. At the top of the funnel is Congress, or in other countries, the equivalent national legislature, approving an annual appropriation to their science agency. That agency, in the American case, the NSF, then allocates a portion of that to its Office of Polar Programs. And from there, the money splits into two very different buckets. The first bucket is science funding, which pays for individual research grants, the actual studies on glaciology, climate change, marine biology, astrophysics happening at the South Pole Telescope. The second bucket, and this is the one that eats the majority of the money, is logistics and infrastructure, sometimes called Antarctic facilities and operations. This is the unglamorous bucket. Fuel for the ski-equipped cargo planes, food flown in for months at a time, waste removal, building maintenance, medical staff, the ships that break through sea ice to resupply the coast. Here's the metaphor that makes this click. Doing science in Antarctica is like trying to run a hospital on the surface of the moon. The actual doctors are a small fraction of the cost. Almost all the money goes into just keeping the building pressurized, heated, and supplied so that a doctor can even show up to work in the first place.